everyone that is starting. Awesome. Well, I'm sure we'll have more people joining as we hop in, but we are ready to rock and roll. We've got David Selvin here who's talking to us about how to leverage credit cards and business credit to fund your real estate deals, whether that's buying a deal, renovating, all the things. He's the expert of doing a lot in real estate without having to pull out your own wallet. And the beauty of using other people's money is that leverage helps us to scale more quickly. So he'll be telling us all kinds of great information about how to do it, both with credit cards and business credit, and what to do if your credit's not that great. So he's got all the things, but we'll just dive right in with quick intros. I think most of you who have joined know Sarah and I. We are both realtors in Bend, and we also run the Central Oregon Investor Network, which was founded to help bring investors together, really, not only in Central Oregon. We actually have people that join us from all over the country, and David is somebody that I know from a national mastermind that I'm in. So he's actually joining us from Texas, Houston,
Texas.
Okay, right. Yeah. So, we do have people that join from our mastermind, from people just kind of finding us online in various places. So it's actually grown beyond just Central Oregon, but our goal is to help people create more passive income in their lives and be able to enjoy more freedom as a result of that passive income. And, I'm an example of that. A lot of us are. We have our rental properties. And so you see my background doesn't look like Bend. That's because I'm joining you from France, from the south of France. So, it's been a full day. It's 9:00 at night here, but it's great to be here. And I always love getting to join and be part of these. Oh, yay. Mary's going to be in the south of France next week. Mary, we'll have to get together. I'll send you a message. Awesome. So Sarah and I are realtors. And if you are not already on our weekly top picks email, where we scour the Central Oregon market and we send the best deals, the best investment deals that we find straight to your inbox with our own candid commentary, then you should snap that QR code on the screen so that you can get onto that mailing list. We find a lot of good deals in the Central Oregon area, and sometimes even outside of that. People bring us deals all over. And so we post them there for people to get, early access to the best deals. And so if you're on that, you'll see what we're seeing every single week. All right. So we're talking about funding your next flip with credit cards and business credit. And our agenda, I didn't update the agenda. Okay, we're going to just go right here. Whoops. So usually we do introductions, and then what we're going to do today that we haven't done for a while is just a Q&A with David. That's, he's such an expert, and he could probably talk to us for a long, long time about this. So he is absolutely like the person to talk to if, you're wanting to pursue this. So we'll do a Q&A session with just like the most common questions that people have about using credit cards to fund their to fund their real estate purchases and rehabs. And then he'll talk about various processes and watch outs and things that you want to know about if you are going to be using credit cards and or business credit. Let's jump in and do some intros. We've got a pretty large online audience, which is awesome. But let's see. So we have a few people in the office. Let's start there. Sarah, you want to go around the room in the office?
I don't remember your name, but I remember you've been to some of our meetups. Yeah.
I'm Josh.
Josh.
I'm mostly a note investor, but do some buy and hold real estate too.
What are you hoping to get out of being here today?
I'm hoping to learn a new thing.
Cool. Love it. Allison.
I'm Allison. I'm a real estate agent in Bend as well. I do not own short-term rentals right now, but it is a goal of mine. And so this is my first meeting with you guys. So I'm just here to learn. I'm excited.
I'm Erin. I live here in Bend, and I am a long-term landlord. And I also have a commercial construction company here. We're focusing on commercial and investor-owned properties. Great at exterior, anything on the exterior, and foundational work and low voltage electrical as well. Anyway, I would like to get out of my mindset of having to use traditional bank loans to buy property.
Yes, I love it. David can talk about a lot of different strategies, even beyond probably the business credit and credit cards as well, like seller financing and all kinds of other stuff. So that's great. All right, let's go online to our online audience. We've got Anne. Hi, Anne.
Hi. I'm with Justin's over in Sun River right now working on a flip, and I'm in our house doing a little deconstruction today. And so yeah, we started the real estate journey last year, got some rentals, got some short-term, long-term flips. It's been super fun, and we kind of ran out of real money, so we need new ways to keep going.
Got it. Good. Well, you will learn a lot today. Jordan, welcome.
Hi, Suzanne. Can you guys see me?
Yep, we got you.
My name is Jordan Hess. I've been to one of your meetups in person over the summer. I think you guys were talking about syndications, and I've been looking to get into real estate. We just have a home that we own and have a super low interest rate on it and a VA loan, and I'm trying to leverage that and looking for ways to just get into real estate. And this piqued my interest. I really just want to be around people that are in real estate so that, being the sum of the people that you're around and books that you read and things that you hear, I'm kind of trying to change my mindset to be more in line with Richard Kiyosaki and Bob Helms and all these like real estate guys that talk about, thinking differently about income. And I think you guys are a good group of people to be around. So thanks for letting me be here today.
Oh, we're glad you're here, and you have found a good crew to surround yourself with to learn new things. And we learn from each other too. So I'm sure we can learn from you. Thanks for joining. All right, Justin.
Hi guys, I'm the other half of Ann, and on our job site in Sun River on this house that we picked up, a studs down remodel for $380,000, and hopefully it's a flip and hold, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, we have a few properties, and like Ann said, we got started really last year, and we went from 0 to 12 doors in about 16 months or 18 months, and we're trying to figure out how to add more with no more cash.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Good deal. We'll help you. All right, Mary. Hey.
Hi, I'm Mary. I'm located in Bend. I don't own any STRs, but it's really been on my mind lately, so I'm excited to learn more. And yeah, I'm just excited to learn about how to fund my next investment property without necessarily like having all of the cash ready to hand out. So I'm excited.
Yeah. Good deal. And then Maylin, welcome. Good to see you here.
Good afternoon. I'm Maylin Tran. I'm actually located in California. We have a few long-term rentals and one short-term rental in Hawaii, a condo over there. And I've just been taking money from our rentals, doing HELOCs or home equity loans, but the credit card thing is intriguing to me. So here to learn about that, different financing options.
Excellent. Good to see you back.
Thank you.
All right. And then Ryan, welcome.
Hi guys, I'm Ryan. I'm here in learning mode as well as many of you are, and I have a short-term rental in a basement in a home I'm currently residing in right now. I did a reno on that, but I'm just looking to expand on my acumen here and understand what's available from some creative financing perspective. And yeah, I'm glad to be here and here to learn.
Thanks for joining us. All right, did I miss anybody?
Yeah, Karen walked in when you guys were.
Perfect.
Hey, everyone. I'm a GC here in Central Oregon, and my partner and I right now we're flipping houses in preparation of building a little boutique hotel in Sisters. And I am curious about, I think I've either spoken to David or we've communicated via email, but curious, how we can use credit cards to further our goals.
Yeah. All right, good deal. Well, David, I'm going to turn it over to you so that you can tell a little bit more of your story, and then we'll hop on into Q&A. Does that sound good?
That's awesome.
All right, take it away.
Well, thank you. First off, Suzanne, I just want to say, Suzanne and Sarah, I just want to say thank you so much for having me on here. It means so much to me to be able to share what I've been through, share my experience, and share my knowledge with you, and I have the utmost respect for you, Suzanne. So it's just great to be here, and you guys are in the right room, and you guys are in for a treat tonight, because what I'm getting ready to tell you guys about is 99% of real estate investors know nothing about. 99% will tell you it's crazy, and yet I'm going to show you how you can make some good money utilizing these strategies. See, the key is to think outside the box. So a little bit about me. I got involved in real estate back in 2016, had a bad experience with a partnership with a friend that didn't go well. And at that point, I realized I had to learn more. So I started deep diving in my education and just figuring it out. And then I got into some flips back when I lived in California in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, did many flips out there. And then from there I got into wholesaling. Usually it's the other way around. Usually start wholesaling real estate and then get into flipping. And I knew nothing about that. So we got into flipping and we got into wholesaling. Then I got into buying and holding and buying some small apartment buildings and things like that. And here I am today. Now we do a little bit of everything. We do a little bit of holding. We do a little bit of creative subject to type financing, selling on owner finance, selling on lease options. And we also still do fixing, flipping, and wholesaling as well. And now getting into some even cooler stuff. Just walked 1,200 acres yesterday. So I'm excited to see where that leads to. That could potentially be an aggregate mine with a lot of potential, a lot of money involved. So that's my story, and I'm sticking with it. And I'm here in Houston, Texas now. So thank you for having me.
And one thing I just want to mention too that I love about what you do and how you do it, David, is your daughter works with you, and especially on the wholesaling side. And it's been so fun to get to know her. And she's what, 24?
26
years old. So she's learning from an expert. And, I just love that you all work together on the wholesaling side. And I'm sure you've taught her all your secrets of the business funding and stuff. So
yeah.
Just some inspiration too for people on the call with kids or nieces and nephews. You can be an inspiration to the younger generations, the people coming up behind us, and help lift them up into a real estate market that many, I think, they believe is out of reach just because of prices and interest rates. And, your daughter is finding out that's absolutely not the case.
Yeah, she's actually my business partner on all fronts, and grateful for her, because there was a time, just like any business, you'll go through some challenges. And there was a time I was going through some tough challenges in real estate at that time and wanted to give up. And she was so green and so new that she didn't understand about those challenges. And sometimes that's a good thing, because she pushed me forward, and that push led to a huge, massive check that I said, okay, I'm back in the game now. So I'm super grateful for my daughter.
Yeah, well, let's dive into the Q&A. These are, the top 10 questions you generally get about how to use credit cards and business funding for real estate. So the first one, I think, is probably the one on most people's minds. Can you really fund a real estate deal with credit cards, David? And if so, how do you do this?
Great question. And the answer is absolutely yes. The first time that I did this was in 2017, and I bought a house in San Jose, California. And when I bought this house, it was, I believe that one was $660,000. The way we structured, is it okay if I maybe go through a deal scenario? Okay. So the way we structured that one, $660,000, and even 664. It was a while ago. A lot of houses since then. But so the 90% of the bulk came from hard money. We used a hard money lender, actually out of your neck of the woods, out of Oregon, Iron Bridge Lending. And we used a hard money lender on that one. And then they wanted 10%. They wanted 10% down, and then they wanted to see holding costs, closing costs, and things of that nature. And that's when I came in with the credit cards. I used $125,000 of my credit cards to get into the deal, to get through the deal. We finished the deal in 3 months. We had it sold in 4 months, and I was able to make a profit of $80,000. So needless to say, I was sold on it. You know, when I was doing it, I'm just like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen, but we'll figure it out. I wanted to get into real estate, and I ended up so rewind back a little bit. My first deal that I did was out of Atlanta, Georgia. Used my money for that deal. And I had a friend that was involved in real estate, and needs to say, it didn't go necessarily the exact way that I wanted it to go. So I ended up getting my money back, which is good. And at that point I said, I need to get educated. So the first place I go, the first thing they say is, all right, open up your phone book and call everybody you know and let them know what you're doing. Well, I come from a different type of past. So because of what I've been through and trials and tribulations of my life, people that did have that kind of money, they wouldn't necessarily, they want to see a track record. And then other people, they just didn't have it. So I had to become resourceful. So I started looking for ways to fund these real estate deals. And I stumbled across business credit. Grateful for a mentor that taught me this. And he actually helped me set up my credit repair business and everything else I got going on. And one thing just led to the next. We bought that first deal. Then we bought another one in Berkeley, then another one in there, and it just kept rolling and snowballing after that.
So when you say you used $125,000 of your credit cards to make that 10% down payment, were you doing cash advances on multiple credit cards?
No, never cash advance. That's the worst thing you can do.
Okay.
And so what we used is I pulled more than I needed to pull just because the deal can suffice it, right? So every time we do this, we factor in how much the money is going to cost us. It's almost like when you're getting a loan, right? There's points on a loan. There's, 1.2, maybe 3 points on a loan that you're going to pay the broker or the lender on your loan. Well, when we do this strategy, we're transferring the cars to cash. There are funding clearinghouses. One that you guys could write down is Plastic. It's spelled Plastiq on the end. And Plastic is a funding clearinghouse that you can basically extract the funds from your credit card and wire it to escrow. Another way to do this is through another clearinghouse, Milio. Money Friend is another one. That's another one that, but they're a little more expensive. They'll charge you 6%. Versus Milio and Plastic, last I used them, it was 3% on the money. So basically, you got to factor that in. So you got to factor in 3%. But the way I was looking at it is that's just 3 points on a loan, right? And most of the cars that we utilize, 0% interest on them for 12 to 18 months. So while I have that 0%, that's when I'm going to put the money to work and try to flip that money as much as possible before that interest rate kicks in. Then when that interest rate kicks in, we just transfer the balance to a new 0% card, so to speak. And that's how we kind of make that keep rolling.
Got it. Okay. So I put those in the chat for people as well. Plastic, Milio, M-I-L-I-O.
M-E-L-I-O.
M-E-L-I-O. And then what the other one was? Funding Friend?
Money Friend.
Oh, Money Friend.
Money Friend Capital.
Okay.
Yeah, they're a little more expensive. So I try not to use them. So we were doing strategies like that, as well as there's a gray area of doing this. I don't recommend anybody doing this, but back then we just didn't care, is where basically my partner would invoice me. I'll pay the invoice for the credit card. That was the fastest way when we had to close a deal in basically 2 or 3 days. And there's nothing wrong or anything against that. The reason I don't recommend it, it can become an accountant nightmare when it's time for your taxes and things like that, because it may look like income when it's not. So,
Right.
yeah.
Got it. Okay. Okay. So you actually can. I didn't know about these funding clearing houses that you can use to extract money from your card. And then you just like wire it straight to escrow?
That's it. Yeah. You have escrow create an invoice, and then you submit that invoice to these companies, and then you just swipe your card and the funds get wired to escrow. And now what I'm seeing since I moved here to Houston, an attorney that we deal with on our creative deals, as well as a title company I deal with on a lot of my cash deals, they're both allowing you to use money transfer systems like Venmo, like PayPal, like Remitly. So if I could use PayPal to send funds to escrow, I don't even need these clearinghouses anymore. I just add my credit card to PayPal and submit the funds.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So then you're using the credit card for rehabs, gap funding, holding cost down payments. And one thing when we were prepping for this, you mentioned like where credit card use works best is those short-term plays. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So the short-term plays are best, because if you try to use these credit cards, say if you're getting a property you plan on keeping for 10 years, you don't want to keep that credit card under 10 years, because see, the way credit cards work is the minimum payment due is typically 1 to 3% of whatever that balance is, right? Now so say if the interest is kicked in, say it's at 24%, that interest is compounding, right? But if it's a short-term play, it doesn't really affect your returns versus if you're utilizing it as a long-term play, because that's where they make the money. So like if you get your credit card statement and you have a balance on there, they'll say if paid off by this year, then it's like this huge astronomical amount, versus if it's a smaller amount, right? So that's the thing, is you want to be in and out with credit cards, in and out, in and out. You want to have an exit strategy. You want to have a plan B to get your funds out of there. So it's a great way to get into a deal when you need to get in right away, yet you do have to have that exit strategy.
So short-term being like 6 months max?
6 months max, yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to be in more than 6 months max with credit cards.
Got it. Okay. All right. And you gave us an example deal. So I'm going to move on to question 2, which is, what do I need to do to qualify for business credit cards? And I'm asking this for myself, as well as like our audience. I've got one business credit card, but many of us in the room, virtually or otherwise, have a number of businesses or LLCs. So talk to us about the business credit card versus applying for just a personal credit card.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I want to touch first on, before I answer what it takes to qualify for a business credit card, let's touch on why a business credit card versus a personal credit card. Because a personal credit card, the biggest challenge is, I'm laughing because this is a true story I'm going to tell you guys, right? So when you could get large lines, it's actually easier and faster to get large lines on personal credit than it is on business credit. So you can get these huge, large lines. I had a Wells Fargo line at this time of the story I'm telling you. At this time, I had a $42,000 Wells Fargo line. I had a $50,000 Pentagon Federal Credit Union line. I had all these lines in my personal name, and I was pulling from them and extracting from them. At the time, I had business funding too. I was just doing so much. I was pulling from these lines. And then we pulled a draw from one of the properties from the rehab budget. And I pulled that draw to pay back one of the credit cards, right? And when I go to pay it down, I paid it down to $2,000. They dropped my limit all the way down to $2,000. I'm like, what the heck? I just paid you. They said, yeah, you're high risk, because it was at high utilization. They don't like that when it's on your personal. But I'm like, I'm using it for my business. They're like, we don't care. You just look like a risk, because they thinking personal. What do people do with personal credit cards? Buy furniture, buy a TV, buy, they buy a lot of stupid things. Not saying that's stupid, but a lot of things you may not even need, so they're looking at it. that you was a risk factor, especially when they're looking across the board and seeing that you were overutilized amongst all your credit cards. Because a lot of us don't realize it, but in the background, every couple of months, your credit card, especially American Express, is notorious for this. They'll go and do a soft pull on you and kind of see where you stand, and then will reanalyze how much credit you should have or what threshold you should have based on where you stand. So when they see all that high utilization, they don't like that. Well, business credit never reports to your personal credit. And on the other hand, I did the same thing with my Chase Ink card on my business, and I maxed it out, paid it down, maxed it out, pay it down. After the third time, they said, congratulations. They rewarded me instead of penalizing me and gave me a higher credit line, because they know and understand that businesses utilize that credit to push their business forward versus personal credit cards. You know, you're not supposed to be using it for your business, so they can't necessarily justify it for that. So anything that you're doing on that personal side, it's going to really hurt you. So the number one thing is, with that being said, is the lines of credit that you have on the personal side to qualify for business funding, you need to have those lines at a low utilization. Now, your low utilization right now looks like 20% or lower. It's usually typically 30%. Lately, the bank's been wanting to see 20% or lower. And if you're below 10%, that's like an A1, right? That means like you're doing really good, and you'll probably get a larger line. Now, when it comes to business credit, we have bankable and non-bankable. And if I go off on a rant, Suzanne, just cut me off in between and let me know. I just, I can, how I could kind of nerd out on this stuff, so to speak. But so basically, you have bankable and non-bankable. So what's the difference? Well, non-bankable is business credit you could get right away by utilizing your personal credit. So typically, how does that look? Your business can make no money right now, and you could go off projections. You can have a brand new business that's literally 2 months old. As long as you have an entity, an EIN, and you open the bank account, the clock started ticking, then you can go for it as long as your personal credit is intact. Now, your personal credit FICO score needs to be right around a 680 or higher. You need to have at least a $5,000 trade line reporting on your personal credit. So what is a trade line? That's just like a credit card. That's a trade line. It's just a line of credit reporting. They want to see at least a $5,000 line. The older the line, the better, but typically around 4 or 5 years is good. And here's the thing, is that there's strategies when you work with people such as myself, where we can add some of these aged accounts to your credit profile to kind of beef up your credit by adding you as an authorized user to somebody else's account who has 10 years history, $50,000 credit card, things of that nature. You want to have no new derogatory remarks within the past 2 years. That means no late pays in the past 2 years. You don't want to have any collections in the past 2 years, any charge-offs, anything that's negative or anything that is bringing down your credit score. You want to have that removed. And again, working with a specialist, you can get that removed. It's very simple, easy to do by using the law in your favor, right? So once you know your personal credit's intact, then now you can go after the business. Now, you want to have the business set up a certain way, although this really doesn't matter when it comes to the non-bankable funding. And typically non-bankable, we can get you 50 to 150,000 in unsecured credit. Now, the reason I like unsecured credit is because unlike a hard money loan or a conventional loan or something like that, right? When it comes to real estate, they like it as long as they can collateralize loans, as long as they can have the loan backed by the asset, meaning you don't pay, they take your property. That's the end of that, right? Well, with these are credit cards and lines of credit. I mean, I don't know. I got a stack here on my desk, like things like these, or or like this booklet here. This is a booklet full of credit cards and things like that. They don't like that.
All credit cards.
Yeah, this is. Let's see if I could do the spread. This is the money spread. They don't like things like this, right? Or like even this stack. I had this stack out because I was utilizing it, and they don't like things like this because now, if you're stacking, right? So if I got, let's see what I got in this stack. So I got American Express, I got Capital One, I got another Capital One, another Capital One. Geez, I didn't realize I had so many Capital Ones. I don't even like them. Another American Express, another American Express. So let's just say, for those examples, put these other ones aside. And then these two are Chase. But say they don't like it because now they're exposed, right? Because you have so much credit. Like, what happens if you screw up? What happens if I use this for a deal and I screw up? Then now they're on the hook for the money, right? Even though what's crazy is that money's manifested every day, it's printed every day. But so because of that, they don't like that. So there's strategies on how we get all of these cards at one time. It's pretty cool how we do it. Actually getting ready later today to do a funding sequence for our client where we're estimate to get him we have already gotten him 109,000, and now we're going back for the second round, getting him. Well, actually, this will be the third round, getting him 150,000. But now bankable. So what bankable is basically now your business is in compliance. So this is non-bankable. This is your business not being in compliance. Now, what do you need to do to put your business in compliance? The right address, the right phone number, the right email, domain, website, all of that stuff they're going to check. So when you go for some of the better terms, the better rates, the larger lines, you will. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I jump ahead? Okay.
Just going to, I'm following you on the presentation.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I didn't even realize I was doing that. But yeah. So when it comes to bankable, now you're getting larger lines. Like once your business become bankable, for example, I have a program out there on the West Coast where you could get $250,000 at 8% interest. Actually, it's probably a little cheaper now that rates just dropped a little bit. So it'll be a little cheaper, but it was pretty much prime plus one, right? Which was like 8.5, right? There's what we were getting everybody, this line of credit. Now, what's the difference between a line of credit and a business credit card? The difference is with a credit card, you swipe. You have to use a third party like plastic or something, PayPal or something to convert it into cash. With a line of credit, you still have the ability and capability of using it as a credit card to swipe, but you just have to call the bank or log into your portal or something, and you can transfer it from that line into your bank account as cash with no penalties or anything like that. So it just becomes that much easier to access the capital that you need. So in order to get those kind of things and those kind of lines, that's what you need to do. Is the business needs to be in proper compliance. Like I see NAICS code on there. That stands for, those that don't know what that means, that's the North American Industry Classification System, right? And that's how they classify your business. Now, we're all real estate investors or real estate professionals here, and I hate to be the Debbie Downer, but the banks don't like us. They only like us if they could put debt against our properties. They love that. But they don't like giving us unsecured credit cards and things of that nature. They deem real estate as a high risk business. It's the same classification as a restaurant. Restaurants are high risk as well. And the reason being is there's a lot of people that start in real estate and do nothing. A lot of people take a seminar and they do nothing, but it's not that they didn't learn anything. They just never took action. And so they might, apply for these type of things and get this stuff and then do nothing. So the banks don't like that, but there's ways around that, right? So what I do is one or two things. One is I always classify my businesses as a business management and consulting company, right? And as long as you're consulting with a client, you're consulting with a seller, consulting with a buyer, it's a consulting company, right? It's so vague that what does that really mean? And you can also structure this as that's a parent company and put companies up under that. And of course, you want to talk with your tax specialist or tax advisor on, if that's the right structure for you. Another thing that you could do is property management is safe. It's a safe category. But as a real estate investor, they deem it high risk, especially from what I heard from the introductions, there's a lot of flippers on here. And people like us, they consider it speculative real estate and deem it high risk. So they don't like it. So that's the main thing. And I didn't even read that, but you put hint, not real estate investor. So that's very important. The safest category you can put is business management or consulting or property management. So you need to have your entity, whether that's an LLC or EIN. LLC or a S corp or a INC. You need to get access to your EIN, and then you need to have the right address. So any brick and mortar address would do, preferably not your house, and preferably not. When I say brick and mortar, that doesn't mean using the UPS store address or some kind of mailbox, etc., or mail drop. The gentleman I was just telling you about that's going for his third round of funding, he's very unique character. I love that guy. And he has such a good spirit. I coached him through this all, and I said, okay, this is your virtual ad. Yes. And it's on his ID, everything. He uses it for his business and his personal, and it's a virtual ad, and that's okay as long as it's the right address. So I'm like, okay, great. So the connection of this bank, we're directly tied into this bank. And so the underwriter calls the banker, and the banker calls me and says, Dave, what I tell you about you got to bring the right files to me. I said, what are you talking about? This guy's overly qualified. And he said, well, we went to underwriting and they Google mapped his address, his business address, and it's a mailbox, etc. place. And I'm like, what, for real? And then I looked it up, and it's a mailbox, etc. And he's big on numbers. So he's like, well, I wanted this address because of the numbers. And I'm just like, okay, I get it, but they're going to Google it and see what it is. So one way around that, say if you're working from home like most people do in 2025, one way around that is using a virtual address. Now, for those that don't know what a virtual address is, it's basically somebody gets a building, there's office building, somebody rents a floor of an office building, and they set that up as a place where everybody could sign up and utilize it for an address. Now, there's two types of virtual address, so you got to be careful because not all virtual addresses are created equal. The first is just a mail drop. That's it. And those will be flagged by the post office as just a mail drop, and the business bureaus and creditors will check that and they will know. The other one is where there's other brick and mortar businesses. So those are the ones I use, where there's other brick and mortar businesses there at the location. Typically it's usually law firms, accounting firms, they will be in there. And then you can rent the address, the virtual address, typically, well, back in California, it was right around $100 a month per business. Here in Houston, it's right around $60 a month per business. And I mean, prestigious location, downtown, skyscraper. And if I ever need to use the location, I can, rent out the conference room, rent out an office cubicle, rent out an actual office, whatever it is, so you can have that business presence. Those are the ones you want because those are not flagged by the Postal Service, and the business bureaus, as well as the creditors, cannot tell if you're actual brick and mortar like those other brick and mortars there, or if you're just using it as a mail drop, so they just let it slide. So that's good to know too. But if you have an actual physical address you can use, that's always, always, always best. And so those are like basically we could go on for hours on this, but that's like basically the main foundation that you want. Domain too. You don't want, so I see Justin just raised his hand, so I'm gonna just use his name for example. You don't want, justinrealestate@gmail.com. You want justin@realestate.com, but you don't even want to put that real estate in your name. So that's another thing. The name is very, very important. So it'd be, justin@justinstevens.com, so to speak. That's the kind of email address you want to have professional. I don't know if I told you this in our initial meeting, Suzanne, but I go under weird names under my LLCs to acquire business funding. And what I mean by that is that I like to use names that nobody can really figure out what exactly that is. Because one of my first businesses was Supreme Investments, and it got flagged because of the word investment in it. And I couldn't go for funding. I had to redo everything. Now, Selvin Financial is the name of my funding and credit repair company. Selvin Financial has the word financial in it. That's high risk. That's deemed high risk. So what do, I have entities under different names that have that as the assumed name or as the DBA, so to speak. And so you can always do that, just like 7-Eleven does. If you walk into 7-Eleven, you look over on the wall and it might say, Quick Enterprises number 236, doing business as 7-Eleven. Same thing. It's the same thing. So you don't want to really have that in your corporate name. So a joke that I had is one company I created was USBQ Direct LLC. And what that stood for is my wife and my children's initials. And USBQ is my wife and my children's initials. And then I put the next word was direct. And the reason is all the money I'm gonna make from that company is gonna go out of my pockets directly into y'all pockets. I don't get to touch anything. So USBQ Direct LLC, So, but then again, what is that? That sounds like some kind of distributor or warehousing. Like, who knows? What is a USBQ Direct? So you don't have to necessarily, like, we often look at branding like, all right, I'm going to be, you know, David Selvin LLC. And it doesn't have to be David Selvin LLC. It could be USBQ Direct LLC or USBQ Direct Incorporated, doing business as David Selvin, so to speak.
That's really helpful. And this is all to get your business funding, and this is mostly for the business funding application, right?
Right.
When you're working with with bankers and underwriters and stuff.
Yeah. So you want to have all this positioned before you even apply, and then you can apply. Now, again, this is for more of the bankable funding. The non-bankable funding doesn't even matter because they're just going to go off your personal credit. The bankable, they're still going to go off your personal credit. So you need that. But then they're also going to go more off of the business. And then you also want to start building out business trade lines and things like that as well. So typically the way we usually work is we start somebody. I brought up Frank a few times. I'll use Frank as an example. We started Frank with non-bankable funding, right? As he's building out his business. And so first we had to fix his credit. His credit was shot. We fixed his credit. Once his credit was fixed, we went and got him non-bankable funding. The first round that we got him, the first amount that we got him was what, 26,000, something like that. And that's what we got him on a non-bankable. Then as the business got built out, just it took a few weeks and the business was built out. Then we took him through the second round, and then we got him on that second round, we got him 77,000 business line of credit. We got him a $10,000 credit card, and there was something else. I think it was like it was a credit product, but not really something you could do too much with. Like I think it was like 5,000. We don't even charge for that, but it was like a 5,000 overdraft protection or something like that for the business account or whatever. And then now we go back for the remaining amount.
Got it. Okay, I'm going to make sure we get to Justin's question. What you got, Justin?
Yeah, just on the virtual address, you know, we have an umbrella LLC that's in Wyoming with an obscure name that holds all of our property LLCs. But I'm just curious if we should have a virtual office in the same state that our business is formed, or could we have a virtual office in Oregon? And
that's a great question. Actually, that's a really great question. So it doesn't need to be in the state that is formed. It could be in the state that is formed in Wyoming if you want to keep it there, or it can be locally to Oregon. And depending on some of the business products, there was a time where I had another colleague in the industry that was heavily connected to a small local bank in Atlanta, Georgia. And I've never had a business in Atlanta, Georgia at the time. At that time, all of my businesses were registered in California as well as Nevada. And then I had foreign entities in other states where I held properties. And he calls me and says, "Hey, I got a play for you. Can you get on a flight tomorrow?" And I said, "For what?" And he says, "Well, you want 100K or not?" I said, "All right, I'm gonna book my flight and call you back." And so I booked the flight. I called him back and I said, "Okay, what's the deal? What's going on?" And he's like, "You're gonna go and you're gonna meet my banker out there in some little town outside of Atlanta, so like Snellville or one of those names." And I went out, but what I had to do is I brought that up because I had to file as a foreign entity in the state of Georgia, create a quick virtual address, and I did all this in one day. Created a virtual address, created the foreign entity and everything all in one day. Then I went to meet the banker, and the reason being is that, and this is key, and you guys could develop these. You don't need necessarily somebody like me to do this. You can develop these relationships, and that's just creating relationships with the business relationship managers at the local branches, because those are the gatekeepers. They hold the keys, so to speak. So, for example, you going to apply at, say, Chase Bank, you can apply. You might get 10 or 20,000 on credit card to start, right? Or maybe even 5 or 10 to start. But if you have a relationship manager there and you're sitting down talking with him, and just like any other business, it's all about the relationship, and you guys hit it off, then now he can push a nudge to the underwriter, as crazy as this sounds, but he can push a nudge to the underwriter and says, give him the max, give him, or, start Justin at 50 or 75. I've seen things like that happen. Because here's the thing, and if you go on, let's just use Chase, for example. If you go on chase.com, and a lot of times, and that's what happens too, is that a lot of times when you go apply for yourself, you don't know what you can or can't do, and you may fill out the application wrong. You don't know the internal, every bank has internal banking guidelines, and so you might fill out the application in the wrong way that will get you denied or get you a low amount. When you work with somebody such as myself, we know what those internal guidelines are. We know what they're looking for and things like that. And likewise, when you work with a relationship manager at the bank, it's the same thing, because you can go on Chase's website, and when you go to fill it out, and this will stumps a lot of people's like, well, they haven't made any money in their business yet, or they might have made only a little bit of money. And then when they go apply on Chase's website, they put it in really tiny print because they don't really want you to see it, but it says enter your gross income of your business or projected gross revenue for the year. So if you feel that you can go off of, say, for example, if I can inject 100K capital into my business, maybe I can make 600K, maybe I can make 700K. You could go off those projections, so to speak. And they don't tell you that, but that's perfectly normal, perfectly legal to do. And that's what the relationship manager at that bank's going to do with your application, why it gets pushed through the underwriter at a higher limit.
Wow, that's a really important nugget of information that I think a lot of people wouldn't know, because, when people are just starting out, right, just forming their LLCs for their flipping business or whatever it might be, they might think, well, I haven't made any money yet. How can I apply for business funding if my business hasn't made any money yet? But if you truly can apply based on your projections, then that is a totally different ballgame.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
And I brought that up because you were asking about where to put the LLC. And so that was a time where I had to meet the relationship manager. So even though my LLC, that LLC that was going for funding was out of California, we went and filed in Georgia to have that Georgia entity so we could qualify for the loan product that they had at that small bank.
Got it. Well, you answered questions 4 and 5, so we've moved on to 6.
Okay.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are curious, and I also know the answer to this is like, it depends on your situation. But yeah, I mean, the example you gave about Frank was a great one. But what are you seeing for people that you work with or people in your circle of like how much they can get with a relatively new LLC with no tax returns?
Yeah, so no tax returns, no what we call a no doc stated income, and so most of the stuff we do, the non-bankable stuff, is no doc stated income. They're not going to ask for any of that stuff. Typically, we're seeing right around 50 to 150,000 for that. Now, there's exceptions where we've gotten a lot more, and there's some exceptions where we've gotten a little bit less. So it is dependent on the person. It's an algorithm. Now, a lot of banks are going off of the SPSS scoring system, which is the and it's crazy because I did some social media stuff on this last year, and a lot of people thought I was crazy. And then now the banks are pulling your SPSS score, and you can, if you want to see what that is, you can always go to nav.com and pull it. Just order Nav Prime and then check the box, pull your SPSS score. What SPSS means is the Small Business Scoring System. I believe that's what it means, but it's FICO. And so FICO already dominates and monopolizes the credit scoring market. A lot of people don't realize that there are other scoring models besides your FICO score, but yet whenever we talk about our credit, we say, what's your FICO score? FICO is a brand, Fair Isaacs Corporation, right? It's just a private company, right? And we always go off of that. There's a Vantage score, right? So if you get Credit Karma, they pull a Vantage score. Sometimes when you see your bank statement or you log into your bank app and they're saying, hey, this is your score, it might not be a FICO score, it's a Vantage score. So there are other scoring models, yet FICO had the ability to dominate the market and control the market, that everybody bases their lending decisions off of FICO. So now FICO created this SBSS. And so what that is they still going off the business bureaus, right? So with the business bureaus, you have Experian Business, you got Credit Safe, you got Dun and Bradstreet, you got Equifax Business, which is the same as the SBFE, the Small Business Financial Exchange. And FICO SBSS creates an algorithm based on your personal and based on all of those business scoring, and they combine it and they blend it and they create this algorithm to see what you stand for. So some people's algorithm, if it's a little bit lower, they might get a lower amount versus somebody who's higher amount. And that's why it's imperative to really start positioning your business to become bankable, because then you don't have to worry about that. Because then your SBSS score is going to be through the roof and you don't have to worry about that.
And bankable, going back to the virtual address, your domain name.
Yeah. And that's part of it. That's the lender compliance part. Yeah. And then it gets a little bit deeper. So it's all of that. The right NAICS code, like we discussed, and then also starting to add trade lines. So you might have to start with some smaller lines. Some things you guys could do right now is, as tedious as this is, because I hate them, that's why I say it, is net 30 accounts. What a net 30 account is, basically you buy something, you have 30 days to pay it. Now you don't want to pay it in 30 days and you don't want to pay it too early. So when I started doing that, I would buy something from, and the reason why I hate them, it's like Uline is one of them, Granger is one of them, HD Supply. Well, a good one for y'all is HD Supply. I think I have my HD Supply card here because you guys can use it for, oh no, that's not it. You guys can use it for your projects. Home Depot has one. That's the one I have here. This is my Home Depot card, but this is a net 30 card, right? That's a net 30 card basically. And I got it strictly to just start building out the business credit. So if you pay, when I first got them, I was like, I'm gonna show them I'm the best. So I was swiping, I use it the day they hit me with the invoice, the day I'll pay it. 3-4 months go by, I pull my business report and I don't see anything reporting. So I called him. I called Uline. It was Uline. I was ordering stuff I didn't need, like tape and paper, and this stuff is like way over. Like, okay, most people say Target's overpriced. The stuff was like more expensive than Target. You know, it's like, what the heck? But I'm doing it just to build the credit. And then I called them and they said, oh, you're paying it off too early. So rule of thumb is you want to pay it right at the midpoint, 2 weeks in, 14 days in. If you pay it too late, you'll get a bad rating on your net 30s. So the net 30s don't do you much good, but you want to start with those. You can start with those to start building out the business credit, so you have trade lines reporting to the credit, and it makes you that stronger. And in our industry, if you need to move quickly, there's people that we can pay a certain percentage, and next thing you know, you have a $400,000 trade line reporting to your business, so to speak. So there's all kind of tricks to the trade depending on your situation and what you need to do.
Okay. This is a question that I know some people in the room are going to have, because we talk a lot about private money lending, hard money lending, you know, as a main source for helping to fund deals and rehabs and all that. So when do you use credit cards or business credit, and when do you use private money lending?
It's a great question. So I personally love private money lending, right? Because it's the relationship you're building, and you're dealing with credit cards, you're dealing with an algorithm, somewhat a computer algorithm. A lot of times, unless you're dealing with the small banks, that's a different story. Small banks or credit unions, that's when you're dealing with a person almost like a private lender, where you can explain things and then it makes sense to people, versus the bigger banks. It's all about checking the boxes. It's usually somebody in the Philippines checking the boxes, and that's the end of it, so to speak. You have really not too much say so. If they deny you, you can, how do you say it? Overturn it. You could get it overturned, but you can appeal it. That's the word I'm looking for. You can appeal it and get a reconsideration. That's the word I'm looking for. You can get a reconsideration, and anytime you get denied, you want to ask for a reconsideration. It doesn't hurt you to do that. And but with a smaller bank, the difference is with a bigger bank, you just say, I'd like a reconsideration. Okay, you'll hear from us in 2 weeks. With the smaller banks, I'd like a reconsideration. Here's why. And you're talking to an actual banker who's going to pick up the phone, call the underwriter, talk to the underwriter directly. And it's just it's better. And so that's the relationship you have with a private lender. You can explain your situation. You can explain the story where, oh yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I'm in, so to speak. And typically you could potentially get better rates, but not always, right? So if I'm at 0% interest, then it makes more sense for me to use these credit cards, so to speak. If I have a lender that's asking for monthly payments and asking for points up front, then it may be better, it might make it a better situation to use the credit cards. So it just varies on the deal and a case-by-case basis. Typically, if I need to move very quickly, I use my credit cards, because most lenders, they're going to be, well, for example, you're in France, for example. So what if my lender's in Germany or something like that? And you know what? This is a great deal. I'll deal with it when I get back. What if I don't have till they get back? Situations like that. If I got to move quickly, then we're dumping the credit cards. And I had a deal where we had to close in 2 days. Swipe the credit card. Let's get it done, and we'll figure it out later. So that's when I use credit cards for situations like that, as well as other situations where a lender may want me to come in and fund the gap. So I might have a private lender or a hard money lender that says, okay, I'll fund 80% or 90%, but you need to come in with 10 or 20%. Okay. So my only choices is I could use this, or I could find another lender to cover that percentage or cover that gap, so to speak.
So you use the credit cards in that case when you're deciding, maybe it's a longer term project, right? Past 6 months, using a private money lender, but they want you to have skin in the game.
Exactly.
So your skin in the game is actually either using credit cards, business funding, or finding another private money lender to fill that 10 to 20% gap.
Yeah. And again, it wouldn't necessarily be like super long term, because anything over 6 months with credit cards, to me, just makes sense. And I just haven't been able to wrap my brain around it making sense longer than that. Although I've had done some projects that took a year, and it only took a year because we had some unforeseen circumstances with construction and things like that. And we still made really good money on the deal, but I don't want to be in just a safekeeping more than 6 months in there. So the plan would be to get in and say, now I can have a private lender. Now I have 6 months to shop for a private lender to replace me in that deal, or replace my credit cards in that deal. Another thing is, like in that situation, remember the credit card is not tied to the property too. So now you can approach somebody and it's zero debt on the property. So now it's just all equity. It looks like you paid cash for it, so to speak. So I've done situations like that where I had a deal where I came in and I bought it with credit cards, and then we turned around and refinanced out of it. And I was able to not only pull all my money out from my credit cards, was also able to pocket $50,000. And then 3 years later, and then I kept that long term, kept it for 3 years, and 3 years later sold it, and it made $160,000.
Wow. You just maximize using other people's money, that like the whole way, which is
OPM
so
is the name of the game.
yes. Okay. So I know we're getting close to the hour, and we usually go over. So if people have to leave right at 1 o'clock, or whatever time it will be in a minute, then, go ahead and leave. But we still have a few other great nuggets here. And this one is like, okay, we're leveraging a lot. What risks should we look for when we're using business funding, business credit cards, all the things?
So the main thing is factor in the extra cost of the money. And so when I say that is, you got to factor in the monthly payment you're going to be making every single month. You got to also factor in, to convert it to cash, you got to factor in those points, so to speak. So typically it's going to be around 3% of whatever you're transferring, whatever balance you're transferring, converting. I wouldn't say transferring, but converting into cash. You're going to pay 3% on that. So you got to factor that in. And then you also want to factor in how much is the monthly cost. So if you're at 0% interest, typically if you just factor in 1% of the balance, you'll be just fine. But you can always call the credit card companies and ask somebody, and they will explain it to you exactly what that monthly payment will be. So we always want to pull more money to cover that, because you don't want to come out of pocket for that. So I factor in, okay, I'm going to need 6 months worth of these payments, and then I also need to cover this 3% fee, and you add all that in, and then you transfer that.
All right. And then we had talked about like hard inquiries and
Mhm.
stacking flags as some other potential risks.
Oh, yes, yes. So hard inquiries, you will receive hard inquiries because they're checking your personal credit. The way they're looking at it is, so like my son just turned, well, he's 15, he's turning 16 next month. I can't believe it. But he's all about driving now. Every weekend I got to take him practice driving, and he wants a Mustang when he turns 16. So if I go down to the car lot and I say, okay, son, I'm not co-signing, you have to buy this car. They're gonna say, kid, you're 16. You need somebody else to co-sign for you or whatever if he doesn't have the money. And he's gonna come, Dad, can you co-sign? And I'm gonna say, why am I gonna co-sign? The dealership's gonna say, well, simply put, he has no credit. He doesn't have anything. We need to base it off your experience. And that's basically what happens when your business is not bankable yet, right? It's your baby, so it's treated as your child, so you're co-signing for it, and that's why they're checking your personal credit. So the main thing is that now when you're applying, you're gonna get some hard inquiries. When you work with somebody like myself who does credit card stacking to get multiple credit cards and things like that, every time for every bank that we go through, you're going to receive a hard inquiry. The good news is that those hard inquiries don't belong on there because they're for the business and not for you. So we easily get those erased, like easily within three to 4 weeks to get erased off your profile.
Okay. Which is important if people are going to be applying for mortgages or other things down the road. Okay.
Yeah, because we can't even take you for another round of funding. That's why we do it in rounds. So like we'll go for like round 1, get you a certain amount, then we sweep the inquiries. Then we go round 2, sweep the inquiries, and then round so on and so forth.
Got it. Okay. And how long generally in between rounds?
So as long as it takes to get the inquiries off, and typically it's 30 days or less.
Okay. Got it. So then another question is, what if people's credit needs work before they get started? Like, how long does this take? What do they do?
Yeah, that's a great question. So with credit repair, I mean, it can be done in as little as 30 days, and it could take as long as a year, so to speak. It just depends on what items are in there, how heavy the items are, and credit repair is a game of cat and mouse, so to speak. We come up with our tricks, and then the credit bureaus come up with their tricks to try to keep things on. So we're just going back and forth. But essentially what we do is look for ways that they're breaking the law and violating the law, and we just use the law in our favor, and that's how we get things removed. So a lot of people don't realize it, but it's things as simple as if it's the wrong date of the debt, if it's the wrong amount down to the penny, wrong address tied to it. So a lot of times we have, and this is a key strategy that you got. This strategy I'm gonna give you guys. I charge a lot of money for this because this is how we get a lot of stuff removed off people's credit reports. So you may have a lot of old addresses. Maybe you had some challenging times in the past, and a lot of that debt that is derogatory when you was going through those challenges is tied to an old address. The first thing we do when we get somebody's report is we remove all of those old addresses and only keep the address where you live now. The reason is that's the only way they could tie the debt by law. That's how they have to tie the debt to you. So then we go and after we get those addresses removed, we go and challenge these debt with the credit bureaus. We say, hey, prove this is mine. I'm not saying it is mine, and I'm not saying it's not mine. But by law, you have to validate this and prove it's mine. So prove it. So the first thing they're going to do is try to look for the address they could tie it to. They can't. So then automatically by law, they have to fall off. So that's a strategy we use. And again, they break the laws all the time. So they might come back and say, well, we removed 3 items, but we're not removing all 10. Okay, then now we take it a step further, so to speak, with other strategies and tactics that we use.
Wow. So interesting. And, you would think that everyone's like, you wouldn't think that these big financial companies are doing anything.
Oh, they're the worst.
But of course. Yeah. Well, okay. Then last question. You've revealed a lot of your juicy strategies, and thank you for giving everybody here a lot of value. What do people do if they want help with this? If they're just like, I don't even know where to start?
Yeah, well, if you want help, I would love for everybody that's on this call, a gift that I can give for you, Suzanne, is just a free funding strategy where we'll just sit down, funding strategy session. We'll sit down for a half hour, and typically that half hour turns into an hour if you have time, because I'm very generous with my time. And you'll sit down with me and let's figure this out. We could go, just go to selvinfinancial.com and just click request more information or whatever that button says where you click on it to put your information in. Just put your information in there and then let me know that you're with Suzanne's crew, and we'll get you going.
Sweet. And I'm really hopeful that this QR code takes you there, but if not, I'm going to put it in the chat. www.selvinfinancial.com. Sweet. Okay, what questions do we have? Anybody have questions?
I've got a question.
Sure.
So my business credit is pretty good. If you had to recommend a couple of companies for like a 250K line of credit that have competitive rates, what have you found to be the best companies? If you want to give that info out.
Yeah. So if you already have established business credit, the first place I would go is circle back with, as long as you have good standing with the banks that you already have credits with, circle back with them, see if you could get those lines increased. That would be step one. And also making sure you're asking them if they could do it with it being a soft pull and not a hard pull on you. So that way it's not like a negative remark against your personal credit. I would start there. And then the next thing I would do is locally in your community, I will start with a lot of local lenders and local banks as well. And just sit down with them, just go in there and ask to speak to the business relationship manager. You can even look them up on LinkedIn, and you can sit down with them and just introduce yourself, let them know what you do, and just tell them like, look, I would love to, if you don't have an account there, you always entice them by saying, hey, I would love to open an account here and move my business here. What products can you offer me? What can you do to entice me to move here into your bank? And they might ask you, well, why do you want to move here with us? Well, I want to start doing business with a lot of small local banks and move forward from there. And I think who asked that question? Because I see the group. I couldn't. Okay. And if I remember, were you the one that had the commercial construction company?
Yeah. Well, I was in commercial construction. Now it's more residential.
Oh, okay. Got you. Well, so one thing to think about is that I always think about is that whenever I see like a commercial development or even like a huge residential development, like apartment buildings going up, and you look at that fence, it always says, funded by, and it's always typically a small local bank. And the reason being is that, again, you're sitting down in front of the actual person that can call the shots, and it's a lot easier to get business done that way. So I would say if you already got some decent revenue coming in and you already have some established credit, that would be where I would go.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question. Is there any reason to try and apply for business funding through creating multiple businesses, or is our goal to just nurture one and make it as good as possible?
No, you want multiple businesses. I mean,
Any is can make.
I'm looking back on my bookshelf because you can't see it, but I have probably 6 or 8 LLCs down there or whatever, and I go for funding under all of them. So essentially that's what you want to do. Is the ultimate play is cleaning up your personal credit, getting the utilization down on your personal cards, start with the first company, getting funding with that. While you do that, go open another company on paper, so to speak, and then you could go for funding under that, and then you could go back for round 2 under the first one, then go back for round 2. So essentially, you can open up as many companies as you feel comfortable with and have a perpetual harvest of funding, so to speak, coming in. But you also want to talk with your tax strategist about that, because every state's different on how that can affect you. Originally, I was doing that, and I was opening up the LLCs in Nevada because it's really cheap to open them up over there. Then California got caught wind of it when I was living in California, and those guys, they're like the mafia. They want everything. They want every little nickel and dime from you. So when they found out I had these LLCs in Nevada, they said, well, you owe us money. And I said, for what? They're there, and I'm not even doing business in California with them. And they said, yeah, but you live in California, so you still have to file them all as a foreign entity. And even if you're not making any money with them, you still got to pay the $800 franchise fee and all that. So now that if you're in a state like that, it could still be worth it to pay that every year, but you got to decide if that's worth it, if you're getting enough funding, and then using that funding to make enough money where it makes sense for you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
What else? Justin, Ann, any questions? Jordan, Ryan?
This has been great. Thank you guys for having me. This has been awesome.
Yeah, that's really
Yeah,
exciting. We found a fourplex yesterday that we want. And then we're like, oh, where are we going to get this money? The cool thing is it's like potentially seller funding, but just the down payment. So maybe that's a credit type situation that we could do.
Absolutely. It could potentially be. I would say book a call and let's strategize through it and see how I can help.
Yeah, I know I put it in the comments, but just to reinforce the credit card thing, we have several American Express business cards, and I reached out for an approval for an $81,000 invoice, and they approved it no problem on a American Express Business Gold. So, there's $81K right there that we could utilize just off one of our credit cards. So,
Yeah, that's awesome. So, and in American Express, the charge cards like the gold and platinum, they have pay over time options too. So if you're approving your $80,000 invoice, then that means your threshold is pretty good. So you may want to see what that pay over time option could be. They might be able to give you a large amount where now, instead of it due in full at the end of the month, you can use it over time.
right. Excellent.
Hey, Dave.
Thank you.
When you're establishing your profile, looking to set up what looks like a permanent address, have you ever used a registered agent address for that?
Yeah, you can use your registered agent too. So I've always just used virtual addresses just because I like it close to me. So, but you can use a registered agent. And when I say that, is most registered agents are at the capital. So for example, here in Texas, the capital is Austin, which is about three hours from me, 3.5 hour drive from me. And so I thought about that actually moving here. I'm like, wait a second, I could just use my registered agent and just do everything through my registered agent. And then I said, no, I'm gonna just get local virtual offices here in Houston for the simple fact that if somebody wants to meet with me or sit down with me, because so it's one thing if you're using it for funding, that's fine. But if you're using it for your actual business too, to have that look of a professional polished business, then now it becomes tricky. If somebody wants to meet with me and they want to meet with me in Austin, or the other situation could be where, some bankers might say, well, hey, you're in Austin, your office is in Austin, but you're in Houston, and there's ways around that. Most people understand global business now, business is global now. And so that's not really too much. It's more the smaller banks that you might have to justify that to. So, but you could most definitely use your registered agent.
That's good to know.
Thanks for asking that. Cool.
Well, if there aren't any more questions, then yeah, I just want to thank you, David, for sharing so much knowledge, so many great tips. And I did check, and the QR code does take everybody to Sylvan Financial. So if you do want to take David up on his free 30-minute consultation, I mean, you might as well, right? And you can also follow him on Instagram, TikTok. You have such great content. It's so fun to watch.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I learned a lot from prepping for this, from hearing you today. You dropped even more knowledge. And yeah, it's just really exciting to know that there are so many other sources other than going to our own pocketbooks for funding, down payments and rehabs and purchases and all these things. So yeah, you definitely opened my eyes, and I know a lot of other people who are here are feeling the same way. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me, and I really, really appreciate it. This has been awesome because every time I teach this, I learn something new because it's repetition. It's iron sharpening iron. So this is awesome. Thank you guys.
That's right. All
Thank you
right.
for being so joyful and genuine too. That's honestly such a big part of this. And so your personality is a great thing. Thank you for sharing.
I appreciate that. Well, make sure you tell my wife that one. No, I'm just playing. We're best friends.
All right, you guys. Well, thank you, and we'll be posting the replay on our YouTube channel. I'll send you the link as well, David, so you can share it with your folks. And yeah, we'll chat with you soon.
Awesome.
All
you guys
right.
take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good night, Suzanne.
Good night. Bye.